privilege and the honor of introducing our speaker for this morning, a good friend of mine, a brother, Jeff Hansen. A very long time. Should I call him Dr. Jeff since he has my doctorate? Jeff is an amazing friend and brother. You've probably seen him helping me run the First Touch Ministry on Sundays and Wednesdays, and he's just a great brother and a friend, and he has a powerful word for you. Would you guys give it up for Jeff this morning?
Good morning. I would not start this without saying I'm not so much nervous, but just anxious. I talk in front of people all the time, so that portion's easy. It's just different when you speak in front of your church brothers. I know most of you in the room, and thank you for being here. I'd like to give a little honor to Sean and Alberto. President Sean for my message today. I also have my neighbor and very best friend, Pastor Brent, here with us today. And I don't is in the room. Taylor did an awesome job this morning. We were shorthanded, though. So today's topic is decisions and choices shaped by God, directed by faith. Part of this will be my testimony, because I really haven't given my testimony, and I will weave stuff in there. We make decisions and choices every day. We're given free will. First off, we're given free will. So in terms of free will, we can make any decision we want. The thing is, are we guided by faith? And there's a before Christ and after Christ for most of us. Not all of us were in Christ our whole life. There's a before Christ and after Christ. And the difference between the two shaped a lot of the things that I did in my life. I did not have a tough growing up. I had two parents that were loving and everything else. And some of you in the room probably may not have had that. So it shaped you. I was at a funeral this week, and it was for one of my mentors. And the pastor stood up and says, "Don't worry about your past." And I got a kind of a weird feeling over myself. And it kind of goes along with this. I don't worry about my past, and some of us do worry about our past. But its idea is I look at my past as a learning to where I am today. How did I learn? Knowing, you almost know my son, I'm not going to talk about him today. A lot of failure. Baseball is failure. A lot of failure. I've had a lot of failure in my life. But from each one of those, as I got older and more mature, I figured out those things shaped who I am and why I'm standing here today. This is the beginning of a new day. When I leave here, I can never come back and do this again the first time. This is the first time. But God has led me all the way up to here, and along that way, He put things in the way. Okay, the devil reared his ugly head every time anything started to be good. And as I got older, I figured out how to mitigate that through prayer and being quiet in myself. You say, why do you drive to San Diego? Well, I get 2 hours by myself. That's kind of a nice time to be able to reflect, listen, reading the Bible through the speakers, and time to myself. So in terms of decisions and choices, we all made decision choices. A lot of the decisions and choices that were made for me at the very beginning shaped a lot of what I did. So that's what I'm going to get into today. So I had a pretty good childhood, but I was overweight. I was teased all my life. Really a big problem at the very beginning. Okay? Much older, I figured out that we would call those people haters now. When I started to embrace my haters, as I had a talk with Brent's wife on the way to the airport, when I started to learn to embrace those haters, life changed. And there was times I'd get really angry and upset, and it's always somebody stepping in and said, "Hey, stop that. You always show joy. Why don't you show joy all the time?" And that's really the truth is what's happened and changing in my life, was showing joy. Okay? So in terms of pivotal moments in my life, getting married the first time was a pivotal moment. Gaining my first son, all my children are by marriage. Of course, Anthony and I, you've seen Anthony, we look alike, same body, everything. So, God has blessed me with a body just like Anthony, so I'm good. So that's what I see in the mirror. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, because everybody else now is a hater. And I'm going to embrace you with all my love and my heart, okay? So the bottom line here is that was the first step. I now have a son. He's 2 years old. I raised him all the way up. But 1 month and 1 day, 35 years ago, so June 23rd was the wedding, July 24th, we're at a picnic. And if you've ever been there, it's over behind El Camino College. I had the perfect parking place. That's the first one. Chose that parking place. Went to the picnic all day, had a great time. I'm on my way out. Now here's where the choices come up and decisions are made that change your life. I'm walking back and there are the porta potties. That's the first part. Porta potties after a long day. Make the decision. Do I go to the bathroom or do I go to the car? Do I go to the bathroom or do I say, no, I'm young, I can go. I get to the car. I'm putting the cooler in the back of the car, which is a Honda Civic. Okay? Hatchback. And my son Blake is standing next to me. He's 5 years old, about this tall. First choice, do I take the truck or do I take the Honda? God spoke to me without me even knowing. He said, take the Honda. Take the Honda. I'm putting the cooler in the back of the car. I turn, and in the corner of my eye, I see something. At that moment, I don't remember anything. I'm only told the story. That at that moment, I snatched my 5-year-old son and I threw him probably 7-8 feet. At that moment, a geostorm with a drunk driver swerved to miss the car and hit my calves at 40 miles an hour. Sandwiched between two cars. Threw the car 8 feet. I then rolled up and I tried to pull myself out and I slipped the back of my foot and I hit again. So I broke a bone in this leg and a foot in that leg. Now that's the point where I say when being heavy was great because I weighed probably 280, 290. If I'd have weighed 165 after I had my gastric bypass surgery, I probably would have been a crumpled mess. Think of this, if I'd have taken a truck, if I'd have taken the Nissan truck, I'd have been split in half. Split in half. So the choices I made that day, if I'd have gone to the bathroom, the car would have got destroyed, or maybe not at all. And these are events that happened that changed the course of my life. Now this is before Jesus, right? So I did what I'm not supposed to do that I know now that I wasn't supposed to do. As I'm laying on the hood, I say, God, if you can get me out of this, I'll do anything for you. Of course, this is before Jesus, so I probably wouldn't say that. I said, Lord, I would have just said, Lord, help me. So, crushed my legs, I can't walk, I go to the doctor and he says, you'll never walk again. I said, over my dead body. Now that term would have been, oh, Jesus got this. Over my dead body. God was listening regardless. Laid his hands on me, and in a month I was walking. Now, if you know where Wilson is, I was up at the corner near Tommy's. That's where I live. It took me 2.5 hours to waddle up to Wilson and waddle back. I took a nap the rest of the day, by the way. Those chain of events started a whole different life for me. I can no longer run. I can run a little bit, but I can't run long distance. Okay? I can do anything else. 5 years later, I finally get on some anti-inflammatories. It really changed the life. I don't take them anymore, but I thought when I came back in, he looked at me. When I went to the orthopedic surgeon the first time, it took a long time because I had fatal health time, FHP at the time. And they had to stick needles in there to see if there was, I had concussion syndrome because of how hard I got hit. Thank God, didn't have to have the surgery to have everything removed. Would have changed everything. So in a month, I'm walking. In a month and a half, I'm back to work. I just started the new job at Wilson. So going to the choices that I made that day changed the direction of where I was going. Later on, I'm living in a house, and we're renting to own, and it all fell through, and a guy walked in and handed me an Amway tape. We started working together, never did very well in it, but I learned a lot of business stuff. But at the same point, he became one of my best friends in the world. Okay? And what happened? He's the person that brought me here. So the choice to live in that house, to meet him, go to the thing, get saved at the conference, turns around and now brought me here, and I've been here over 30 years. Yeah. So the choices that were made for me indirectly or directly before Christ set me up for where I am today. In the 2000s, after I met Christ, I prayed a lot, and I got gastric bypass surgery. I was 352 pounds and I had a 52-inch waist. I was huge. Okay, now when afterwards, I can take myself and my younger daughter and put us both in a pair of 52-inch pants, and we all have a good laugh. But I had gastric bypass. Another point in my life that changed everything. You look at those things, but I had to make decisions on the way. Then you look at after Christ, coming to Life Life, meeting Pastor Larry. Went to Catholic school for 6 years, learned more in a weekend than I did anywhere else in my whole 6 years of Catholic education. From that point, all the way through. Then moving up with Pastor Sean and Pastor Joel, and now working with a lot of people around here, and most of the people are in one of our volunteer groups. So I mean, you look at the way it's shaped, but there are decisions that have been made since then that now are God-driven and after the moment of Christ. Such as when, during that whole time, for probably 25 years, I continually asked, why did this happen to me? And went to Colorado for my son's wedding, the son I threw. And in the morning, I'm reading my Bible, and all of a sudden it was like I was being spoken to. Right there. Now, of course, we're 8,000 feet in the air, almost 9,000 feet in the air. I can barely breathe. But God is still speaking to me. And you know what he said? He said, you would not be here today if I had not helped you at that moment to throw your son out of the way, because he would have been crushed to death at 40 miles an hour, sandwiched between two cars, whether we had a truck or a horse. So when I stood up and I said it, I did it without crying. Thank goodness, I'm an emotional guy. And I sit there and I said, today is the day I realized why I got hit by the car. And that's a very terrible thing that happened. But on that day, God helped me save this young man. Now he's marrying a beautiful woman. Would not have happened. So the choice that was made that day to go to the bathroom or not go to the bathroom set a chain of events that changed my life forever. Because I don't know where I'd have been if I had not had that moment back then that I thought was the end of the world. With so many questions, and so much pain, and so much heartache trying to deal with the insurance company and getting the help I needed. To have a son who's married and successful. That would have never been here if God's hands hadn't laid it on me in a millisecond to take him and throw him away. So biblically speaking, as I start to do this, I think, well, what about choices? And I try to really search the Bible for choices. And if you really think about decisions and choices, it's really not talked about in the Bible. It's not like, this person was asked to do this and it just happened. But what would happen if some of the people in the Old Testament had not followed their faith? Not followed what they knew was correct? So let's take one of them. Let's take Abraham. To leave the homeland in obedience to God's call. That's a pretty simple one. What would happen if Abraham said, I always think of when I was doing this, A Few Good Men, where Tom Cruise is going after Nicholson, and he says, and they're talking about the red, whatever the red thing was, and he turns and he goes, "Oh, did they say that? Oh, the old man is just crazy, doesn't know what he's talking about?" Who's matter? Abraham said, "Oh man, you know what you're talking about. I'm going to stay here." How would that have changed that portion of it? And biblically, verse, the Lord said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. Genesis 12:1-4. What would happen if you said, I leave? How many of us have done that and said, you know that you're supposed to do something, but you just don't, and it has consequences? Think of your past. How many times are people in the room that I know have had things happen to them or done things to themselves, and they know they're not supposed to go back to it, they go back to it. Those are those choices that you have to make. The choices that you have to make. Moses, to confront Pharaoh and lead the Israelites out of Egypt. What happened if he said, you don't know what you're talking about. Pharaoh's going to kill me, I don't want to do that. Pastor Brent and I were talking about it, and he said, what about Esther? Esther's a woman and gets up and goes up and talks to the king, knowing that she might be, and she said, I'd rather die. Those are things. What happens if these things did not happen in the Bible? How would that have changed everything? We know that they were touched by the Spirit. But there's still free will for each and every one of those, and they had to make the choice. Even if they didn't, if the choice was, I'm only doing this, it still was a choice, and it was the right one. Some of our choices create bad situations, but out of that can come good. And that's what we have to do. Your past is your past. Yes, we should not so much forget about the past, but what in that past can make me better today? There's somebody in this room that's used drugs. I can't talk to somebody about drugs. I've never taken, I've never drank, and I've never used drugs. I can help them, but I can't do what that person can do for somebody else. That's the gift that they're given, and that is their past. And that only strengthens us every time we do something like that. Anything in my past, such as being teased and everything else, those are the things that gave me resilience to be able to talk to somebody else that's being teased or getting called names. I was a security guard for 31 years, and people go, well, what happens if they called you a name? Well, geez, I've been fighting you for 40 minutes. I've been called every name in the book. There's no big deal about it anymore. Why? Because my upbringing gave me the opportunity to be resilient when it comes to somebody calling me a name. First off, I can't hit him anyway, so what's good of doing anything? But in the same idea, if I ignore it, I'm now embracing my hater and go back to embracing that hater again, and things turn very, very solid. What about David? To faith Goliath. What if he says, oh, he's too big and I walked away? Then again, his faith of the mustard seed was great enough to be able to pull that person, pull that out of him and figure out a way. God gave him the idea of the rock. God gave him the sling. God gave him the strength to do it. So think about that in the big picture. Any one of those things that he decides that I don't believe in, that does not happen. So it sets a different course. And our goal, my goal here tonight is to teach you that choose your course. Be ready to make changes to that course as you go along, because there's going to be trials and tribulations. All my college students, I said when they're doing their CAPSTONE, the devil's going to raise his ugly head because you're doing something good. My doctor was the same way. It reared its head so many times, and we just kept pushing it down. And I'm not going to say I didn't have doubt. I'm on my 2-hour drive to San Diego, and I'm thinking about being a doctor, and I'm crying in the car, and I'm praying, and I'm, Lord, get me through this. Help me. I've got to find a way through this. Ran into an atheist right before the end. He didn't believe in any amount of prayer. Tried to throw out 12 pages at the last minute. My mentor, again, God put you in the right path. My mentor was a theologian and an anthropologist. Think about that. That's an oxymoron. Brightest man I ever known. He went all the way to the top and said, I've got 60 doctoral students. If you don't get this kid through, you got all those back. And it happened. Sometimes it works that way. Think of it this way. If you are in a trial and tribulation, there's always a way out. First off, prayer. Prayer always works. Prayer works. Doesn't work always right away, but it does work. But those of us in the room that are believers at a men's breakfast, I would imagine everybody has seen Jesus and talked to Jesus or prayed, and some of us have yelled his name in vain. Jesus, help me! Jesus! I don't know my doctor. I must have said Jesus! I just called his name and went back to work. But those trials and tribulations go away when we seek the face. That's the bottom line. Because what it does is it brings joy. Once you release it and you allow yourself to feel the joy, and there was 25 years of no joy about my legs and the things that I couldn't do anymore and the problems it caused with the body and everything else. Okay? So, I mean, think about it. What happens if all these other people in your life now didn't do what they did for you? And there's always somebody in your life that's there to help you. What happens if they didn't help you in your time of need? Whether it be a little bit of money, maybe a little bit of food, maybe it could be getting you on, speaking to you and put you on the right track. Tell me how different your life would be. If your life was tough at the beginning, it doesn't have to be tough at the end. My life at work was tough for many years. And one day, one lady says, go back to being joyful because that's who you are. It took one person to change the direction. I didn't know she was a believer, but God spoke to her and spoke to me on that day. And from that moment on, I went home, I sat down, I prayed, and I came back with a whole new attitude. And in a matter of time, all that had gone away. But it also opened my eyes to what was really going on and allowed me to take a step back. I took myself out. Ray and I, again, we're talking about being present in the moment. I was talking to somebody about my son being present in the moment when he's on the field. I became present in the moment every day. And that's really the biggest thing I can give you, is learning to be present in the moment every single day. Whether it's a presence when you're praying, or when you're thinking, or when you're with somebody, or whatever it is. That's what truly changed my life. Because when I became present with Jesus, I started to read, I started to do things, I started to act differently and do differently. Of course, some of the people in my life changed for me and did what there. But those people that I have now, such as Sean and Ian, and I go around the room, you're some of my best friends. And some of them we don't see every week, but I know Alberto. I can call Alberto on a heartbeat. Alberto knows he can call me. If I'm available, I'm always available for him. Why? Because we built a bond that wasn't there 2 years ago or even a year ago. So looking at everything that's going on, I get divorced. It was a tough time, but it had to happen. And I met my new wife, and I picked up 2 daughters. Both of them have baby daddies. One's a baby daddy. And the other one embraced me right from the beginning. He said, "You can handle my daughter, you're good." Because Madison was off the when she was young. Different than Blake, who was outside. This is a whole new experience. ADHD, yelling, screaming, fighting, everything. And Rosie was told, please. Her dad says, don't listen to him, he doesn't know anything. And that's the way the whole life went. But I respected that and dealt with it as time goes on, and I continually pray for that every single day. Madison, on the other hand, listened to a lot of things that were taught, and how she was taught. Now she's married, has a husband that works in the oil fields in Texas, that they make good money. So she's well taken care of, gives first grandbaby. And then Anthony shows up. And Anthony was a crossing pattern. I'm not going to get too much into that. As we were meeting, she was ending it. That's how Anthony became an INC. But the choices I made along the way and the things that God gave me an opportunity to do gave me all 4 of those children. And at a certain point, I just prayed to God. I said, God, if you're not going to give me a son or a daughter, that's fine. I'm fine with what I have. Thank you for what I have. Gave blessings for what I have. And most of them are very successful. But I go back to that moment of sitting on the hood of the car when I said, God, get me out of this. I'll do anything. And I ignored it for a long time. And all these things are going on. I meet Jesus. I start coming to church. I start doing this. Those were all choices along the way that are shaped by the things that happened in the past. And then I get to the point where I'm now in my master's, and I'm at Azusa Pacific. So now I'm in a Christ-centered school. I'm not in a public school. Christ-centered school. And I could hear this little voice in the back of my head. Hey, dude, you're starting to do what you said you promised me you were going to do. Then what happens? Then I get more involved in that. And then I get hired at San Diego Christian as an online as an adjunct teacher. Now I'm able to preach in the classroom to these students and help these students. Again, I hear the little voice and I'm doing really well. And then the job shows up, a full-time job. And I get the full-time job. And she tells me I got the job and I'm crying. And she says, why are you crying? And I said, because I think I just satisfied something from 30 years ago. I was laying on the hood of the car. I am now doing what I asked God. I told God I was going to do something, and it took 30 years, but now I'm here. And I think He seasoned me all the way through to bring me to that point. All the things I went through, all the teaching and everything else to bring me to that point. And then, Sean, how long ago was that when I decided? Is that 2 years now? Maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago? I walked up to Pastor Larry and I said, he was in town, I said, I'd like to get involved in leadership. He says, great. And I said, I've been looking at it. I think I want to become a deacon. He said, why a deacon? I said, because I don't want to move. I don't see the calling to pick up my stuff at 61 or 62 and go somewhere else. I said, down the road, maybe that changes, but right now, I think my service is a deacon. That basically means I help everybody out. I'm good with that. And I've been on that road for a while. And it could come to fruition this year. It's all in God's time. But now I'm the lead usher. I'm doing more in the church, which I've always wanted to do. But it still goes back to that moment on the car. I wasn't supposed to say it, but I said it out loud. Which means He was listening. And I think He seasoned me through all the coaching I did and everything else to become the person I am. He allowed me to reach into the lives of those 4 children and hopefully, for the most part, gave him a better life. It doesn't happen without that moment on the car. It doesn't happen without being teased when I was younger. Because I became more resilient in a lot of areas. So the idea here is that, I'm going to move to the New Testament real quick and then we'll close it out. But, think of the big dog, Jesus. What would have happened at 33 if he said, man, I love being a carpenter. I only want to go out and preach. What would happen? How different would our life have been? Not true, but think about it. I don't know if Jesus had free will. But if he did, he says, I'm not really happy being a carpenter. Or whatever else he was doing, because we don't know a whole lot about that period of time. But what would happen? How different would our life be today? Would I be standing in front of you? The thing is, it's that big that I'm standing in front of you talking about Jesus. It may not have happened if he hadn't preached. Okay? Next one up would be Paul, which was Saul. Okay? And Saul being on the side of the road and getting touched by the Holy Spirit, saying, I'm not going to kill Christians anymore. What happened? He said, no, I'm having too much fun. I want to stay the way I am. How different would it be? How different would it be? It's a moment in time. Everything is a moment in time. And that moment in time, when you hit that moment and it happens, and let's say it's bad. Some people go into depression. At school, we call it the hangnail syndrome. I got a hangnail, I got to take 3 weeks off and recuperate. I can't come to school, I can't do anything. Do we fall into depression, or do we go to the place of joy? And do we look up and say, God, Jesus, where are you taking me? And it wasn't until maybe the last 10 years that I really embraced that. And every time it happened, I looked at the Charles and said, God, where are you taking me? Because this is changing the direction. And it all came again from being on that hood. Peter, to preach at Pentecost, leading the conversion of thousands. What happens if he says, hey, I don't feel like preaching today. I don't feel like getting up this morning. I'm going to take a nap. What happens if he doesn't do what he did? He was touched by the Holy Spirit. That goes to the next one, is that we don't know when we're going to be touched by the Holy Spirit. I believe, we have to put ourselves in a place to be able to be touched by the Holy Spirit. That's by our belief and our faith. And when we have those two, I think at the right moment, Jesus steps in and says, good job, son. Here's what's going to happen now. I think that's so important. It took me 8 years to get my doctorate. Here I am, 57 years old, in a car, bawling my head out. Because I've reached what God set me on a path 8 years earlier. And I forgot about everything else on that journey, except for that moment. Everything else became easy at that moment. But really, it was a real challenge. Okay? Principles for godly decision making. Trusting God's guidance, that's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Ask for wisdom. This was something that created greatest growth for me. Because when I stopped being what the women call a man who won't ask for directions, started asking for directions. Started talking to people. Talked to Sean, talked to Pastor Larry, talked to Deb, talked to everybody. Talked to those people that I have trust in, like Brent. We sit out in front and talk Jesus. We talk about life. And we talk about a great sense of guidance. If you don't have that in your life, on top of accountability, just having somebody that you can talk to. Okay? Again, same thing, seek godly counsel. I think they kind of go together. Follow Scripture's light. There is a passage in Matthew, and I forgot to write it down, but it talks about your light should not be hidden. And I got that probably 2 weeks after I came to Light Life. I read that passage just now and about on my emails, everything. We are all beacons of light. And that light shines on every person that you touch, whether they want it or not. It can bounce off and come back to you, which means you get doubly blessed. I call it doubly blessed. But in the same respect, you look at it, if I show my light, and that became the point of being joyful all the time, and trying to be happy and upbeat, not fake, but happy and upbeat, and it becomes very natural, that light shines through, and people will be drawn to you, even whether you like it or not, because they're going to see something different in you than someone else. Otherwise, that they are a hater, and we're going to embrace our haters, and they turn around and they become followers of Jesus through someone else, and it doesn't matter how they get there, as long as they get there. Okay? Make plans humbly. I think I've done that. I think I can say I have. I've been humbled so many times to where now it's just like, God, what do you want me to do? What is it? Where am I at? Where am I going? I tell my students that they come in, where are you at? Where are you going? That's my mantra when it comes to stuff like that. Okay, God, I'm right here. Where am I going? Show me, I'll go. And look where I'm at today. I got a son in the major leagues. I got a daughter who's married to a guy making good money. I got a son in the business who's done very well. Focus on virtue and character. And I think this is it. When I started following Jesus, virtue and character changed. And people could see it. People could see it. They said, something's different. Something's different. Something's different. I said, yeah, I'm following Jesus. Come on, let's go. And then I found out other people were there. So as a security guard, I got 2 pastors on there. Our lunchtime Bible study. We were talking about stuff. Good, bad, ugly. We talked about anything in that room. Stuff that had seen, and how could we change things, even though it was very hard to change the decision. Theological references, relational. Walk closely with God, not just follow formulas. Multifaceted, combine scripture, reason, prayer, and love. And I think I kind of shown that today. That's kind of like when you talk about decisions you're making, really it is multifaceted. And remember, every failure is a learning experience. And if you're young in the room, like most of you are, learn that early, because it will change everything that you do. Because, oh man, I messed up there, no problem. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to learn from it and get better. Okay? Receptive, remain humble and open to God's healing, wisdom-oriented. Seek and reflect God's character, not just His outcomes. And let's do some application. Reflect. Where is God calling you to step out in faith? Before, it would have been something I wanted to do. Now everything I do has something is gone to prayer and supplication and everything else to be able to make great decisions, even though they might turn out to be wrong. They're great decisions based on what I'm hearing from the Lord. And if I'm hearing wrong, I hope that He's not done too much damage that I cannot change course and become better. And then act. Make your decisions not out of fear, but out of faith. Every choice we make is an opportunity to either walk with God or drift from Him. Like Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and others, may our decisions reflect trust, obedience, and kingdom purpose. So to kind of sum it all up, look back. All the things that you've done in your life, good, bad, ugly. Okay? Not to reflect, not to simmer. Okay? Not to put it on the stove and stir it up. No, don't stir it up. Look back and say, from that, what good has come from it? It's a positive affirmation and not a negative one. And I think that's the biggest point. Turn bad things into positive affirmations for the next step in your life so it doesn't happen again. Whether it be somebody that you're dealing with, it's just not right. To whether it be a marriage or a child who's having a problem, sometimes we have to take that step back to take 2 steps forward. Last story would be, I was up for a job in Wilson Volleyball for 5 years. I coached for 40. I was doing all kinds of things in the program to show my loyalty in the program. And after the 5th time, I walked in the principal's office and I said, why am I not getting this job? I'm more qualified than the last 3 people. They've only lasted a year. I'm not planning on going anywhere. And he looked me dead in my face when I was about 52 inches race and says, somebody fat will never win the CIF championship. Yes, lawsuit, yeah. Unless I had it recorded, it's going to be a little hard to fight that one. And it wasn't a fight I wanted. So I walked out there, and what happened at that moment? I probably had Jesus for about 6 months. I said, God, it's time to win the championship, don't you think? So I bowed out of volleyball altogether. I got a phone call. Hey, Jeff, there's a job at Paula. It's your alma mater. It's yours if you want it. You just got to go in. There's nobody as good as you. My daughter's a senior. She was a lead player. And I want you there. Great. No, yes. Okay. Prayed a little bit. Still stayed yes. Okay. Because it happened real fast. So I applied for the job. I got it. And in that interview, the last question was, when will you win a championship? And I said, 5 years. I mean, just like that. And I walked out going, God, I hope you were listening on that one. Because that was a very bold statement. They were third in the league the last 3 years. So I get a phone call, and I had trials and tribulations with parents along the way and everything else. 18 and 0, and I'm having parent meetings. I never understood that one. And then 5 years later, I'm sitting in the office, I get a phone call. Hey, this is so-and-so from Milliken. Hey, thank you for hiring me over here. He says, oh, that's good. You know what this year is? I said, yes, year 5. He said, you remember your interview? He says, you said you were in the championship in 5 years and you were in the finals. At that moment, I said, oh my gosh. And I looked up and I said, wow. Words spoken right from God through my mouth, and here I am. And we won that year. And afterwards, I gave praise like I never gave praise before, because I didn't say that. I had to be God saying it, because I didn't know what I was just trying to get a job. Trying to get the job at that point. And then I spent 26 years in college as a CSO, and I coached for $40 with the club and everything else. But that moment, defining moment, just a couple words, 2 words, 5 years, put a 5-year plan in motion to where 5 years to that day, I was a CIF champion. By the way, at the end of the story, so I can close this out, there I am with a picture of me and my big old body holding up this trophy. More ecstatic. But the best moment is when God put me in that man's presence again. He had retired. He was doing consulting work. I'm standing with like 8 people. They're all giving me congratulations. And he walks around the corner. And man, you should see me trying to hold it back and just not start laughing. And he walks up and he says, congratulations. And he walks away and she goes, and they go, God, that was awkward. I said, yeah, well, he told me I never win as a fat man. And he had to eat a little crow. And I'm thinking, wow, God is good. God brings it all circle, round circle. 7 years it took. So it's not right away, it was 7 years, but everything he told me to say that day came true. So your defining moments bring up choices and decisions that you need to make. Are they God-centered? Are you seeking Jesus' face before you go there? And those things that are bad in your life in the past, and even bad at this moment, don't have to be bad forever. They are learning experiences that make you grow. And when you grow, all of a sudden those bad things become the past. And guess what? The biggest thing is God places us all in place to be fishermen. And if we're going to be fishermen, those things in your past, you can touch all you need to do is touch one person. And you may not even know you touched them by your actions and make all that count. I've got players that hated my guts all the way through, but today will call me on the phone and tell me when they're having a baby. Why? Because I pushed them to be better than they ever were, and they all became better than they really were. And I think that's what Jesus wants you to just be better than you were the day before. Reach out. Use those things that you've been taught through him. And to close it out, I really appreciate the opportunity for my first speaking experience to be in front of you guys. Like I told my son, well, there's never going to be another draft day. Will there never be another day where my first time speaking in front of a men's group? Next time, it will be my second time, and that will be the first time for the second time. So let me close it out in prayer, and I'll bring Sean up. Heavenly Father, thank you for the day. Hopefully the words that you've given me today have reached out and touched somebody in the room. Like I said, if it's just one person is all that matters. Lord, if I touched everybody in the room, thank you for the extra blessings that you give me. Lord, I want to give praise right now for my life and what's going on in my life and everything that I've been blessed with in the last year, what I got to participate in and do and be able to go and that. And Lord, I bless this church and I bless our pastors because they are some of the best in the entire world. They'll be humble and say no, 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 but if you've gone anywhere else, you'll know that they're some of the best people in the entire world. They have touched so many lives and they've sent so many people out in so many different places. Lord, please continue to bless them with prosperity and love and keep the negativity away from them. Lord, put a shield around them from the negativity because there's a lot of negativity in the world that can come their way. Lord, let it bounce off of them. Lord, thank you for all the men in the room and all the things that they have done for this church and for themselves. Lord, please bless them as they walk through their day. Keep them prosperous, keep them healthy, and keep them free from sin. But the biggest thing of all is allow us to all seek your face on a daily basis through prayer and quiet time. Because then when we do that, the choices and decisions we make become much, much different. And all God's people said, Amen. Powerful testimony and reminder of God's faithfulness.
3 things I want you to take away from this. Number 1 is this, reflect. Jeff reminded us to reflect on where God might be calling you to step out in faith. Let's be honest. How many of you are hard-headed? Come on, raise your hand, be honest. Okay, the people that don't have your hands up,